Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another weekly edition of Account-Based Friday. We got a special guest from Virginia today, Josh Carter, who heads demand from Pavilion. Josh has done a great job with demand, and I was sharing earlier with Meg, my co-host, that I had met Josh through one of the Pavilion events. If you're not a member, you certainly should consider it because there's a huge network of B2B sales and marketers in there, and blown away by Josh's knowledge. And I'm hoping that we'll tap into some of that today. But just to kind of set up logistics as people are filtering in here, first of all, my co-host Meg and I have probably done 300 plus of these videos over the last 3 years, really on best practices around account-based or go-to-market strategies. We have a QR code in the upper corner that'll allow you to get to those best practices. Of course, Meg or I could also direct you to any specific question that you might have. My co-host Meg formerly ran Serious Decisions research and also an analyst at Gartner and also a practitioner from a CMO perspective. And so I'm honored to have her join us. Each week we start off with a poll, and the poll this week was about AI. And the AI poll that we were asking about is, what's your current go-to-market strategy on AI? Are they typically in your company? Are you using rogue applications like a ChatGPT or the $20 a month type investments, or the scaled where they're bringing across AI across multiple SDR, BDR function, sales, or marketing, or other? And we didn't have a ton of responses here, but I was surprised to see as many people saying, "Hey, we're at the scaling mode right now of AI and GTM." I figured, although it wouldn't let me vote this time, I figured Rogue would have been the most popular. But Meg, what was your response to this one?
Yeah, I'm in the scaling camp. I think you've got a lot of people and companies that have moved past experimental, especially because I think you've got a lot of executive teams and investors kind of pushing for, hey, we should be seeing the productivity improvements. We should be seeing cost improvements. We should be seeing just, our marketing organizations, our go-to-market organizations operating using the best tools that are out there. And by the way, they're pretty affordable. So I'm not surprised that scaling was the choice. And I'm just excited for people to continue to learn and deploy the power of some of these new tools that are out there. And Josh, thank you for joining us. Pavilion is a pretty cool place to be these days, I would think. Yeah. What are your thoughts on our poll?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me, both of you. I'm really excited to be here and talking through how to actually operationalize AI and the way teams are thinking about that. This is no surprise. Our data shows the same thing. We surveyed go-to-market executives earlier this month in the Pavilion community, and 70% of them said that they were operationalizing AI across one or more of their teams outside of giving people a ChatGPT or Claude license or whatever, because at the end of the day, at least a study back in 2023 with Harvard Business Review found that just giving employees access to these chat tools and just telling them to go run and use AI actually didn't move the needle in terms of productivity per employee or revenue per employee. There's a lot of metrics they were looking at there. So it's really interesting to see that we're getting away from, at least in organizations, in the focus within go-to-market, we're getting away from, hey, everybody just do your own thing with AI, to a more consolidated strategy within specific functions. And so what I found really interesting in our research was, 70% are operationalizing AI beyond just these, everybody gets a ChatGPT license. But to no surprise, we asked people where they were adopting AI, and the bulk of the adoption is in marketing and sales. And the least adopted, according to our survey, was in customer success function. So I found that really interesting to see, the amount of investment that teams are making in marketing and sales AI solutions and implementing that. And to me, at least, it's really no surprise, because a lot of the solutions out there, like Salesforce, HubSpot, a lot of the ABM solutions were very much quick to incorporate AI within their platforms, specifically for sales and marketing use cases. Not to mention, copy creation is such a popular use case for marketing. So it's no surprise to me that marketing is the number one kind of adopted within the go-to-market motion, and customer success is last. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for customer success leaders to really start to understand ways to implement AI.
Yeah, that's awesome, Josh. You gave us a lot of nuggets there in terms of kind of what you're seeing there of AI adoption. It's interesting that CS. I guess I could also kind of see your audience, which probably skews a little bit more towards sales and maybe a little bit toward marketing. I could see them being early adopters just by nature of their resources and their curiosity factor. I'm a little surprised that CS isn't more down the path, but then again, they don't have a lot of resource like sales and marketing, and especially marketing does. So perhaps that's coming, but the use case that I would potentially see would be linking into your knowledge base, because you could really be pretty powerful with that use case. But let's talk. You mentioned use cases, and you talked a little bit about the sales and marketing use cases.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest impact from your experiences monitoring both Pavilion and your own experiences building the community? Where are you hearing the biggest impact use cases for both sales and marketing? I think you started to touch on it, but maybe we can go a level deeper.
Sure. So I think a lot of people, at least a year ago, thought that AI was going to be some silver bullet and magically transform their SDR team, in the sense of, hey, you can just buy an AI SDR and call it a day, and they're going to close more business than your average rep. And certainly we have seen some success stories around that, but they are definitely the exception, not the rule, when it comes to implementing AI. So I think one of the challenges that companies are facing, sales and marketing teams, at least maybe last year, was this desire to sort of go all in and not explore like, hey, let's walk before we run, right? And so where I'm finding the biggest impact, at least across my team and also in the Pavilion community, we have a channel. If you're a Pavilion member, there's a channel called AI in GTM. And that channel is one of our biggest channels in Pavilion, and everybody's talking about how they're adopting AI in their go-to-market motions. But really the key use case that we're seeing to make the biggest impact as quickly as possible is around enablement. Sales enablement, marketing enablement, but particularly sales enablement when it comes to account research, person research of somebody you're about to speak to, doing some light personalization of emails, and then having the rep take a look at that personalization, make some tweaks, and then send it. That's another really key use case there, versus this, like, I guess, nirvana, this vision that I think a lot of companies had last year was, hey, we could just put this on autopilot. Like, we are not there yet. Most organizations are not there yet. A lot of organizations lack the foundational infrastructure to even make that happen. So where I'm really, really bullish on is, and what I'm working on personally at Pavilion, is creating a central knowledge base of everything that Pavilion does in a series of tables inside of a single database. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you have a table of all your customers. You have a table of all your prospects. This is all living in Salesforce for us, but you have a table of all this stuff. And then you also have a table of, for Pavilion's case, we offer continuing education through courses. You have a table of every single course with its date and its link. You have a table of every single podcast with the podcast link, the transcription, so that when you build these AI workflows, whether you build them using Zapier or something and you had a step for ChatGPT, or you're using a tool like CopyAI, whatever you're using to sort of operationalize AI, you need the AI to reference a consistent thing. And the challenge is, especially when it comes to teams, each kind of using their own point solution, is you're not referencing a single knowledge base. You're not referencing a single source of truth of the data that you want to stay consistent across the company. And that's not to mention even brand voice concerns too. So it's like not just like the data you're referencing, but also how you I guess take that data and explain it and provide that consistent brand voice when you're like personalizing an email, for example. So yeah, really where I'm bullish on and where I'm seeing a lot of companies really focus is on enabling sales reps with the right information about the account, giving them internal tools to be able to quickly search. Hey, in our case, the use case here is, hey, I'm speaking to a marketer in Nashville. Who else is in Nashville who's a marketer that's a Pavilion member that I can connect them with? That is like a very common, there you go, John. It's exactly you, man. So that's really where I'm excited about, is like finding ways to make reps more efficient. And then on the marketing side, because marketing was the #1 adopted use case, I mean, the use cases are very, I guess, more prevalent in day to day, is around copy creation, doing research on accounts, generating account-based landing pages that are personalized. I'm seeing a lot of that happening now, but it's really around content creation.
Josh, what do you see as sort of the risks within copy creation? I think we've all seen some pretty, I'll call it at least mediocre, at worst, truly dreadful content that can come out of AI. How do you guard against a shift towards everything sounding sort of the same and not so great?
It is so cringy, isn't it? A lot of times.
Perfect word.
Oh my goodness, especially on LinkedIn, like people are just like regurgitating awful AI content. And then they wonder like why nobody's liking their post. It's like, this is literally not a unique perspective. You're just copy pasting it. It's so frustrating. I think the common pitfalls is not feeding it just feed it with your writing samples. When you write a prompt, I like to follow a framework called the Rhodes framework, and I'll drop a link to it. But if you type in RODES framework, when it comes to writing good prompts, I think that's the biggest opportunity for companies, and is really a lot, like when it comes to writing copy, being able to write really, really solid. I'm just going to pull up the image here. Writing really solid prompts, because at the end of the day, the AI can only take what information you give it. And when people write bad copy, it's typically because they just write a single sentence or two about, hey, I want to write an article about why ABM matters to enterprise software. I don't know, whatever. And then it'll just kind of do something really basic, versus using a framework like Rhodes. When you're writing copy, you can say, hey, you are an expert at account-based marketing strategies. Your goal is to write an article about how health tech companies should start adopting this strategy for account sizes over $50 million. And the article needs to be at least 300 words, but no more than 500 words. And here is some background information from our company about information that we already have around this topic that would serve as the foundation. And then you go and share examples. And this is where I think a lot of companies have gaps, is around actually giving writing samples. And so what I like to do is just like go and look at the best writing that I've done, at least to me, and or best performing, I guess, posts that we've done, and writing samples, and then just drop them in there so they can understand the flow. And then the last step is a sense check. Before you tell the AI to actually go out and write the thing that you want it to write, you ask it, hey, is there any additional context that you need? And then the AI is just going to come back to you and say, hey, actually, I would like a little bit more context around specific health tech companies that you were referring to in this use case. So following a framework like this can help safeguard against a lot of the challenges that companies have when it comes to implementing AI across the board, not just with copywriting, but with pretty much anything that you're building, whether it be like doing account research or whatnot. So yeah, I really I really encourage companies to if you're watching this and you're writing copy, like even if you get something that you think is halfway decent, spit it back in and give it additional writing samples of like your style and your sound, and then layer in unique perspectives. So I think that's like the other missing piece, is there's this tendency to want to fully rely on the content that AI, it's really lazy, honestly, just relying on the content AI produces and just copy pasting it and calling it a day. But if you don't have any unique perspective, unique narrative, nobody really cares. Like that's information that they get on their own. But if you have a unique perspective, a unique narrative, then suddenly that content goes from, wow, that's interesting information, to, oh, okay, so now what do I do about this information? Like, how do I start to think about it as the audience of that piece of content.
Yeah,
That's
really
awesome.
good advice. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, John. I was
No,
going
I'm
to try and get in Ray's question.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm gonna totally steal that Rhodes framework. So I'm glad you shared that. And yeah, we were just as Meg mentioned, Ray just chimed in. Ray's been actually a contributor to our blog. So welcome from the West Coast, Ray, and appreciate you joining us. Really good question. But if I were to net it out, it feels like what he's asking is there a good AI tool that can take advantage of the unstructured data? And I'll kind of semi-answer this because I've seen Google LM as one option, because you could do multi-mode uploads of either documents or podcasts or YouTube videos. But have you seen any other tools that aggregate all content forms, as he's suggesting on the unstructured side?
Yeah. So we use a tool called CopyAI for this. CopyAI, and I'm gonna share it because I'm really excited about it. But it's I think currently in beta. They're releasing a feature where they can essentially clone your data in Salesforce or HubSpot inside of their own like table structure. So basically that what this tool does is allows you to create workflows with AI, where you could say, think of it like Zapier. If you ever use Zapier, you have like a trigger event. So in this case with Copy AI, it'd be like trigger event. Somebody fills out the lead form on your website, and then the next step is research the lead, and then the next step is write personalized copy, and then send that copy back to your CRM to personalize the email or your sales engagement tool. So it's sort of like an AI workflow builder tool. But what we're using it for, to Ray's question, is when they build that feature, when they release this feature, we're going to be able to ongoingly reference the source of truth, which is our CRM, and we're going to hold all our data in these tables inside of our CRM. They're going to get synced to the tool we're using to deploy these AI workflows. So that way, everybody building a workflow is going to reference the same data. But when it comes to unstructured data, so when it comes to something like maybe a pitch deck, for example, that's kind of hard to take into a structured format. You can take like features and benefits and put them in a table format, but for unstructured data, you can reference like a knowledge base, and most tools have this. Is just like this. Most AI tools will have this, and ChatGPT has this too, where you can just upload context. That's how we're approaching it right now with Copy AI. But yeah, I think there's a lot of power in having that central data store of all your information about your customers, your prospects, the features you offer in a format that's really easy for the AI to understand. So that's the tool we're using today to accomplish this, and I'm really excited for their next frontier of actually syncing that data, because right now I have to basically manually upload the data into a table format, sort of like a Google Sheet, basically, in their LLM or in their tool. And then in the workflow builder, I say, hey, take a look at this table and find, in this example, and one example would be find a member that closely matches from this table the prospect that is coming in and is interested in joining the community. So that's sort of like the use case that I'm using it for. But yeah, that's a great question, Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. And yeah, let us know if you didn't get the answer you were looking for. But Josh, I'm curious to build on that, because you got a lot of companies who, as both of our data sets showed, yours a little more extensive. People are kind of in that scaling mode.
Yeah.
Who on your team or who on your community members' teams are you seeing involved in doing the things that you just described? And what kinds of skills are you encouraging your members to help their teams acquire to be able to operate in that world?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and a challenge that I've talked to multiple organizations about this. And in fact, I talked to a health tech company a few weeks ago that was dealing with this exact problem, and they were struggling with who on the team actually implements this stuff. And sometimes it was, is it ops? Is it rev ops? Is it sales ops, marketing ops? Is it demand gen? Is it growth marketing? It depends on the size of the organization. The answers are kind of far reaching, but what I'm finding is there has to be at least one or two internal champions, and it doesn't matter the function. Like my role is demand generation. I'm responsible for new member acquisition. I'm also a nerd and I love this stuff. I've been building CRMs and I've been building in CRMs and building marketing automation solutions for like my entire career. And I just love the getting in the weeds part of it. So naturally I was drawn towards AI, and I've been this just constant beating drum about, hey guys, let's implement it. Let's go. Sometimes to a fault though, because like I mentioned earlier, there's this excitement phase in 2023 where everybody was just like, let's try to AI everything. And now I've sort of leveled back. Okay, let's focus on the key use cases. But I think what we're finding, and I'm finding this in the AI channel, there's got to be a champion. I've seen CROs be champions. I've seen VP of sales be champions. But you've got to find that person in the organization that wants to be, we'll call it like the AI czar, for lack of a better word, that's going to really push other people on the team to start to adopt this and incorporate it. And I'm personally working with our VP of Insights, Tom Andrews, on and he's on like the other side of the business, the operational side of the business, basically building out all our back end processes for member engagement, all that stuff. And he is like the champion on that side, and I'm the champion on the pre-sales side. And then we're coming together to create this like central sort of AI hub within Pavilion. But yeah, the roles are kind of far reaching when it comes to AI adoption, but you got to find that champion and then assign them, hey, this is your creed. Like your creed is to get this organization to the 21st century. And what I'm finding when I say 21st century, wow, should I just say 2025? It's 25 years in. But that's one thing. And then I'm also seeing a rise in what we'll call AI builders or AI GTM ops. Like this, I've seen some of these job titles start to pop up, and there's some companies out there that are essentially outsourcing talent in this space where they have AI builders, and you can have them come into your organization and build for you. There's a lot of talent marketplaces that are starting to incorporate these types of roles. So that's also another opportunity, is if you don't have an internal champion, getting your feet wet at least with somebody that's a professional builder and can kind of identify the opportunities and use cases. That's another thing that I'm seeing.
Wow, that was awesome, Josh. And a lot of food for thought there about skill sets and kind of the people and responsibilities. Yeah. And maybe just kind of reeling back for a second and thinking about Pavilion, and your origins were kind of sales oriented. Yeah. Are you seeing any changes in particular with sales and AI and outbound? Like how is AI being used in an outbound strategy perspective?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the concept of this like AI SDR got pretty popular earlier last year, and a lot of companies that I've talked to have not seen success out of that. Some companies have, if they've built it right and done it right. And again, going back to like the framework, the training, the enablement of the AI model, like it has to be right, spot on. So I think one of the challenges is people are really quick to give up on this type of thing. So in the sales use case, all it takes is, let's just say, some AI to build personalized copy for a rep to use. And if the rep doesn't like it, they're not going to use the solution. And so, and it's just how it's going to work, right? It's like, we're going to build this thing out, and the reps are either going to use it or not going to use it. So when that first, I guess the new way the new kind of approach I'm seeing people sort of gravitate towards is more so, like I mentioned, the enablement use cases, doing account research, and actually like putting in the right data into the CRM to enable the rep to be more productive. So for example, you can use AI to build like an account plan, and then you can take that account plan and automatically associate it to the record in Salesforce and in some Lightning Force component on the page, like some big field that they can just tab over to and get all the research on the account, maybe a summary of the calls that occurred. So I think the big use case I think people are moving towards now is enablement versus let's just put sales on autopilot. The way that I personally am excited about this from outside the enablement use case talking more so on the outbound use case that you just mentioned, is personalizing like little bits of the content you're going to put out and not the whole content. And so where I'm really excited for this opportunity is, for example, you could take an outbound email, have a, hey John, saw you're interested in XYZ. Here's how I think this could benefit you. And then the benefit list is what AI writes. And then the rest of it is what you write. So you really like fine tune AI to just like one part of personalization. So it doesn't, so you reduce the risk of it coming across as like a full AI email. It's more of just like an enabler to make your email even better. So I'm seeing that as like kind of how people like went really, really far into like, let's fully automate and personalize everything, to just like, no, let's focus on the key use cases. And what I'm finding is the full personalization, at least when I've done it, has not yielded better response rates. But what is yielding better response rates is when you come across as a human, it's your own language, it's your rep, with just like a little bit of acknowledgement that you did your research on that prospect, and can tie the features and benefits that you offer as a company to what that prospect cares about.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, Josh. I think we can't lose sight of the human touch here, because that's, I mean, we basically want to talk to other humans, not AI. So AI can help make the conversation better. Maybe we look at it that way. But kind of a closing point for you, because one of the things that I think we've seen evolve alongside of AI is the importance of brand and community. And I feel like Pavilion's kind of really at the intersection of all of those things. Given where demand is going and how companies need to fight harder to get the attention of the audiences they want to engage, what are some of the things you've seen in terms of the role of brand and community along with demand in terms of fueling growth strategies?
Yeah, so companies should not be losing sight of brand and should be making investments in brand. And we could say this till we're blue in the face. It's hard to measure. It is. And companies will give up on investments in brand like very, very quickly. And the companies that are investing in brand are objectively winning. We have some research. We did put out a report from Trust Radius that I'll link out to in the chat here. But it's essentially the story is, when companies are evaluating products, they are and they're creating a short list, 66% of those people are basically choosing their short list based upon if it's in their brain an established or leading product. So like if you can associate your brand with as like top of category, you are going to win, and you're going to win on these short lists that these people buying software are going to create. And so I brand and how people feel about your brand is incredibly important. It's important for us as Pavilion. We are nothing without the community that is comprised of Pavilion. And so this is incredibly important for us, is to maintain like that transparency in our brand, that the idea that Pavilion is here to help people grow their careers and level up as professionals. And if you don't have a unique position as a brand, and you have not established this is what we do to as far as outcomes for you as a professional, and make that professional feel that you're selling to, make them feel something outside of, oh, they're just like some tool that does this. No, you want to elicit an emotional response, and how you get that to that emotional response is really the tough part. But the investment can be incredibly valuable. And it's all about just like putting yourself in the shoes of your buyer and looking at the products that they consume, how they consume information. Just do all your research as you possibly can to understand who these people are, where they get their information. So like, for example, for us, a lot of our members are on LinkedIn. I would say almost 100% of them are on LinkedIn. A lot of them are very active on LinkedIn and building personal brands on LinkedIn. So what are we going to do as a brand? We're really going to double down on LinkedIn. We're going to double down on the channel. If you're selling tech, right? If you're selling software that for developers, maybe you double down on Reddit engagement and like contributing to like the community there, or Quora, or there's always gonna be different channels, but those little touch points can establish like, this brand was a helper to me. this brand was, you want to think about how people think about your brand. So like, we are a guide, you are a helper, you are, an aid. Like you just gotta think about how people, might elicit that emotional response and go from there.
That's awesome advice, Josh. And I think just to add to it too, with brand and kind of this environment that we're in now, where a lot of buyers are pretty far down the path of their buyer decision. When they come to sales, it's almost as if the decision is kind of made or very much shortlisted to one or two providers. So that brand all of a sudden becomes a little bit more important than perhaps times past.
Yep.
It doesn't look like the link will show well here, but we'll drop it in. It's actually on LinkedIn, so you can connect on that PDF on LinkedIn. But going back to your point about brand and its importance, because that runway is shortened on the sales side, I think it becomes more important on the top of the funnel now as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree, John. What are you seeing with your clients?
Everybody is really focused right now on revenue, just growth. So everybody talks about brand, but it's really hard to kind of wedge it in. Now, admittedly, we're focused on that revenue optimization,
Right.
ABM, and other go-to-market motions, but it's everybody wants to fit it in. It's just really challenging to budget for it and to say, yeah, we're going to go after this. But I think people are looking at ways that they can do renegade branding. So whether it be low cost advertising, low cost video, they're looking at other options and alternatives, just like you said, Reddits and they're looking at ways to expand their footprint that are low cost and are efficient. So it hasn't been they've abandoned it. It's just under this budget reality that we're all under right now. It's just tough to get it all in.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to make a conscious decision. Like, do I want to be here in 2 years? What is our plan? And I've worked with companies where they have literally told me, we're trying to get acquired in a year and a half. We don't care about brand, which is absolutely terrifying because it's like, how do you even know? Like, you're just making some bet that you're going to get acquired in 2021, and now it's 2025. Like, you didn't get acquired. Don't you wish you invested a little bit in brand so you could have that long-term sustainability? I digress.
And depending on your buyers too, we see a lot piling into LinkedIn right now too. So there's a variety of different ways that, whether it's personal brand or your company brand, there's cost-effective ways to get from point A to point B leveraging LinkedIn. So, well, that's great. I just kept or noticed our time. We're a few minutes over time. Josh, any final words before we wrap up here on kind of, where you see AI going for the rest of 2025?
I think people are going to start to focus on the enablement use cases, really nail those, make their reps more efficient. Is going to be key. That revenue per employee metric is going to be incredibly important. So we're going to be really focused on efficiency. And to get started, I encourage you to literally sit at a chair next to your reps or whoever and watch them work. If you are somebody who wants to be that AI czar, sit next to them, watch them work, and then find opportunities. Oh, how often do you do that? Oh, you do it. It takes you 30 minutes a day. What? 30 minutes a day? Oh my gosh, I could build this for you in 5 minutes. Like, start doing that, because if you don't get in the weeds with your people, when you roll it out, it's not going to work, and you're going to roll out the wrong use cases. So that's my piece of advice.
Yeah, Josh, any marketer who doesn't spend regular time with their counterparts in sales, out in the field, on the phone, wherever they are, is really missing out on, I think, one of the very best opportunities to up-level your marketing and your understanding. And by the way, have a good relationship and probably a really interesting day too. So good advice. Low tech even.
Yes, Meg.
But Josh, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josh, for joining us. And next week, Meg, we have a special guest from, I think, Ireland, right?
We do, actually, by way of Italy, I want to say. Kind of an interesting journey. Hopefully a little more time zone friendly than Josh for you on the West Coast. But we have Miguel Gurnay, who is CMO at Aptian. And he and I had a really interesting discussion recently about the importance of digital availability. And essentially, it's the intersection of brand and demand, right? Where you're saying, you need to be present where the people you need to reach are going, whether that's earned, owned, paid media, anywhere else, right? Where your buyers are going to be and your customers are going to be. But it's not just enough to show up. You've got to show up and shine. And the idea of maximum digital availability is, to use Miguel's words, having an available and arresting brand and content that really engages your buyers and engages the market more broadly. And he's going to come and talk a little bit about that concept. And also, he's got a very strong background as a marketing leader in data-driven insights to help inform everything from creative strategy to pipeline analysis. And he's going to talk a little bit about the importance of that as fuel for creating more effective digital availability. So should be a good conversation. Excited to have that one next week.
Excellent. We'll see you back. Same time, same place.
And happy Friday, everyone.